Hey everybody, Foley here. Welcome to the weekly news recap for the 17th of November to the 7th of December 2025. That's a long one. It's been away a little while, so we're going to recap the last 3 weeks, I think, so of video game news, so bear with me. So first up, Xbox had a partner preview the middle of November. Showed off a couple of third-party games that are coming to the platform, and then I'm pretty sure vast majority of these are also coming to PC and PlayStation. We'll go through them anyway. So Armatus is, by the looks of things, a roguelike Warframe. So it's set in some kind of post-apocalypse Paris. Whether the rest of the world is also post-apocalypse, I don't know. But it's kind of, I think it's Warframe in some ways. It's third person, over the shoulder shooting, a little bit of melee, but for the most part, it looks like it's a third person shooter. I'd say what you're looking at there is maybe a mid-run upgrade. You're not hearing the voiceover, but it is mentioned several times in the voiceover that when you die, you'll come back, or something like, it's like when we die, we pass on, but you come back over and over again, or something like that. Anyway, it's a roguelike. It looks cool, as is the case with a lot of roguelikes. It will really be like, how fast is the progression and what have you, and how grindy is it, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It might be interesting. I don't think it has a release date. Nope. Next year, some point. We had The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. Omen of Cthulhu? Oops. So this is a first-person... I'm not sure if it's an extraction thing or if it's just like a first-person shooter kind of gauntlet thing that has some kind of psychosis elements to it. Like sometimes you'll see enemies that aren't there, or sometimes your teammates will appear as enemies and you can shoot them and do like friendly fire and stuff like that. It's some interesting concepts, but it is purely multiplayer, so I have no interest in it. Dave the Diver stealth launched onto Xbox during this partner preview, and there's also a new DLC for it. Crowsworn, we'll have a very brief look at Crowsworn because it is just Hollow Knight. It's Oops. It's Oops, definitely not Hollow Knight, but it definitely is Hollow Knight. I was thinking here at the beginning that maybe it was a little bit more of a precision platformer kind of thing, but no, later on you do get into it that it is very much a combat oriented thing as well. So yeah, I mean, if you've already finished Hollow Knight and Silksong and you still want more, and it does have kart running, it does have Donkey Kong kart in it, I guess. Donkey Kong mine carts. I don't remember what Echo Generation is. What is Echo Generation? That's why I don't remember. It's a card game. All right, moving on. Vampire Crawlers is Vampire Survivors, but even slower. No, it's like a very old school dungeon crawler, done from like first person perspective in some ways, going through the dungeons, and it is like kind of a roguelike type thing. Vampire Survivors did have some elements of like a roguelike to it, but not really. It really is kind of its own genre, but this one is very much like a roguelike deck building thingamajiggy, but it does have a bit of the Balatro stuff of making, you know, broken builds and that kind of thing. Anyway, 2026 to everything, not just Xbox. 007 First Light was just showing off the new car. It's not really much else to it. Roadside Research I think you've seen before, but I think it's getting a console release, but it's basically you and a bunch of friends are pretending to be humans who are running a gas station, petrol station out in Nevada. It's probably Nevada actually, because Area 51 and what have you. But you're actually aliens, and the MIBs are looking for you, kind of thing. It's very much in the same vein of something like Lethal Company or something like that. Total Chaos is the game that used to be a Doom mod, and now it's its own game, and does look pretty cool. It has been on PC, I think, for a couple of months. So I think it got a console release during that partner preview. So I think it's also on PlayStation. Um, it's pretty cool from what I've seen. I haven't played it myself. Reanimal, I think, just showed off a little bit more of it, but it's very much Little Nightmares 3.5, Little Nightmares 4, whatever way you want to look at it. Erosion, I also don't remember. Is this also because it was a card game? Oh no, this is also, I think, a roguelike as well? It's like a voxel western thing. I don't know if it's a survivor's type. No, it's not a survivor's type. No, it might just be like an adventure game. Okay, I don't know why I skipped over that. Maybe I thought it was like a roguelike thing. Anyway, Zoopunk had a little bit of questions on whether or not this trailer was generative AI or not. The developer says it isn't, so you take for that what you will. I believe it isn't as well. This is technically a prequel to Fist, forged in Shadow, I think. Forged in Shadow towards something like that. That was a side-scrolling Metroidvania type. Whereas Zoopunk is the same character, I think. This guy on the bike, I think, is the same character from Fist. But this is set before the events of that game. Because I think in Fist he's an old man. And in this one he's younger, at least. Mostly CG. It's unlikely the game itself will actually play like this. It's a bit of combat here. It's very like old school PS3, PS2 type of brawler. That just looks very nice, basically. There is a little bit later. I'm going to skip ahead a good bit. But there's a section later on where your friends join in. Yeah, here. So you have your friends. There's a bit here where obviously you're playing as them as well. There's a question of whether you swap between them, or if it's scripted that you swap between them, or what have you. Or is it a Guardian of the Galaxy type thing where you can swap player or swap characters on the fly? I don't know. But yeah, it looks interesting enough. Let's see if there's a release date. I went too far. I don't think there is anyway. Yeah, this doesn't even have a year, so that one's a while away, I think. Clover Pit, similarly, is not unlike Balatro, but it's a slot machine. Same kind of thing. You just make crazy slot machine builds that break the game. Hitman has probably the funniest elusive target. It's teaming up with Eminem to take on Slim Shady, and don't question why they're not the same person. Anyway, this Tides of Annihilation trailer. I say trailer. It's meant to be gameplay. I mean, it is gameplay. It's just it looks so heavily scripted that it is hard to tell how much of it is actually gameplay and how much of it is, you know, the person pressing buttons. It looks very pretty. I will give it that. And it is Jennifer English doing the voice acting, so that will probably help out. So there's a lot of this kind of mirroring going on of this other guy who's fighting her at the same time, and then at some point you team up to take on the boss. But there is this kind of splitting of the arena happens quite a few times, and happens in some really interesting ways, but it makes the game really confusing to tell, like, what parts of this am I actually able to attack? And you have to wonder, are we looking at somebody who just knows the boss fight and knows when to dodge and knows when to avoid stuff and what have you? This is like the 10th time they fought them kind of thing? Or is the game extremely forgiving in this kind of way? I don't know. Like, it's really hard to tell which parts of the arena you can actually move in. Yeah, you team up with the guy eventually, and then you're able to move into the mirrored section and take on the boss. It's very cool, I'll give it that. But again, how much of this is actual gameplay and how much of it is just scripted cool things? And then they kill them. Anyway, yeah, no release date for that one either. If it's maybe end of next year. And then the last thing was a sequel to Raji, of all things. I didn't think Raji did great, honestly. I thought it was okay. And I think critically it did fine. but I didn't think it did well enough to earn a sequel. But on the other hand, I think it's an independent studio, so it's really up to them what they want to work on the next time around. So there's not a whole lot to this trailer. There's 2 characters. I don't believe either of them are from the first game. It is still kind of Indian Hindi mythology. I'm not super familiar with it, so I couldn't tell you what exactly they're going for here. But it does look like maybe it's more of an underworld type deal. Again, I don't know. I'm fairly ignorant about Hindu mythology. But as far as I can tell, neither of these characters are from the first game. At least I don't think they are, because I think they're Kali and Yuga, and Raji is the name of the the character from the first game, so it's neither of them. And then that was that. So some interesting games there, but I believe the vast majority of them are coming to PlayStation, and in some cases are already on PlayStation. Anyway, moving on. Some new games announced actually during this week. So the Godslayer is from Patea. From the looks of it, it's going for a Infamous kind of deal. So if you remember PS3 Infamous, PS4 Infamous Second Son is kind of a superhero type thing, where at least in the first game you had like electricity powers and you were just doing various things with electricity, doing cool superhero stuff, and it was a very fun game, and Sony just completely dropped it for some reason. Anyway, this time around it's Avatar: The Last Airbender in China, maybe China, steampunk China, I guess. And you're taking on the gods, I presume. The Celestials is the name of the group. Anyway, I'm going to skip the CG trailer because it doesn't show off much. I'm just going to go straight to the gameplay. So yeah, it is very, from the looks of things, very old school in its design. It's almost very early Assassin's Creed in some ways. The combat is probably where it stands out a little bit more. I am just going to jump ahead until we actually hit combat sections. So there's a bit here where his master creates a distraction. He needs to drop down here, and I think he runs into a couple of guards. And there's like here situational things. So on the right there's a water bowl, and on the left there's like just a loose rock, I think. So it is, like, as I said, Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's earth, wind, water, fire stuff. Fire seems like you just have it to hand all the time, which I think doesn't make sense from an airbender stand things, or firebender thing. I think they need fire to be present for it to work. I don't know what that symbol is. I'm assuming that's wind, because I think he creates steam here, even though technically maybe there should be water and not wind. I don't know. It's hard to tell. The water and wind ones never really made sense because they're the same thing, but in a way they're the same thing. Don't come at me. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of it is situational, a little bit of traps, but then he does have his own melee, which, at least at the beginning of this gameplay section, is all fire-based, and it is very Infamous. You have a lot of different abilities, but all of them have the same element to them. Like in the original Infamous, you had like little like machine gun shots, which are electricity bolts, and then you had like more precise kind of sniper rifle type shots, fire like big missiles, grenades, and you had like death from above and melee attacks and stuff like that. So it is still kind of in keeping with it. Potentially he mixed in some wind there. I don't know. There's no HUD on screen, so who knows how exactly this works. There's a section here where he picks up the big hammer, but he's using wind, I think, to carry it. So he only gets like one shot out of it for some reason. I don't know why you couldn't just keep going. Oh, it's probably metal, actually. Okay, so if we're going with the elements, it might actually be the more traditional Chinese elements. So wood, metal, fire. Maybe they're going like that? Unless he's using wind to break this thing, which doesn't make sense. I don't know. Anyway. So again, I'm wondering if that's scripted to happen, or can you just any water tower in the area you can just pull down? Who knows? But there's water on the ground, so you can freeze them now, so that's kind of fun. If that's exactly what's happened. I thought this part was very funny. He uses the guy's head to just jump off. It's just super disrespectful. Anyway, I'll skip ahead a little bit. There's a bit of a impromptu boss fight here with this guy. Maybe a sub-boss or a mid-boss or something. Kicks his ass anyway. And then we've got like on fire guys who are probably a step up and maybe are immune to fire. I don't know. Our character is using earth attacks here. He moves on to use some water attacks there. And then it's just a mad dash to get out of there before they get killed. It looks pretty interesting. I said Pathé was the developer. Previously, Pathé made games like My Time at Porsche, My Time at Sandrock kind of thing. So this is a significant step up from their previous games. So it'd be curious to see how this works out for them. Hopefully well, because, you know, it looks pretty good. Anyway, wasn't the only new game shown off. When Sirens Fall Silent. This is from the same developer behind Martha is Dead. And I think they had one other company, The Light Village or The Lighthouse or something like that. So the gist of this trailer, it's fully CG. We don't have any gameplay, but the idea is there's this person who's been taken hostage. They filmed hostage message, if you like, to basically say that we're gonna capture somebody else, and it's gonna be a police officer, and that police officer has to do what we tell them to do, or we're gonna kill all of our other kidnapped people, hostages, and what have you. It's pretty, you know, high quality, high fidelity stuff. Martha is Dead also was a pretty good looker of a game. What is probably the more interesting aspect of this trailer, though, is that it turns out later on that, well, that was creepy. Turns out later on that she's not a hostage at all. She's in on it. So who knows what's going on with the game. Anyway, so that's When Sirens Fall Silent. I don't think we have a release date or anything for it just yet. Sol Shogunate is kind of cyberpunk samurai stuff. Cyberpunk Sekiro, kinda. Again, I'm gonna skip ahead here. You're doing Planetfall. Somehow you aren't just turned into tomato paste as soon as you hit the ground here, but whatever. Don't ask questions. Sounds like a tale of revenge and betrayal, which is, you know, pretty standard for samurai stuff. We'll skip ahead a little bit because there is a little bit of gameplay later on. I did actually want to point this out. So there is a bit at the beginning where they're waiting to like jump off the ship, and they use the kind of wires to hold themselves down, and then they let go of the wires, and that flings them out of the ship. And it is somewhat reminiscent of Attack on Titan's kind of I forget what it's called now, the mobility stuff. I was going to show it here because it only really comes up once in the gameplay, and I'm curious if it... Oh no, it actually comes up a couple of times. Using wires to pull yourself into enemies. Now, whether it becomes anything more than that, I don't know. If anyone has played the Attack on Titan games, you know that there's quite a bit, like it's one of the better parts of the game is being able to move around with that stuff. You know, nearly Spider-Man level kind of moving around stuff. Whether this is, like I'm saying Sekiro, but it's probably more of a brawler type game rather than that, because it doesn't seem like it has the kind of deliberate animation style of something like a Souls game. But I don't know, it looks kind of cool. Again, no release date. Probably next year, maybe the year after even. I think this is the last of the new games. So this is Samson, a Tindleston story. Tindleston is the name of this fictional city that you're in. It does very much look like a modern day Mad Max, or like an old 80s, 90s vigilante type game. I say 80s, 90s films, vigilante type thing, but a game of it. This is from Liquid Swords. Liquid Swords, I think, are former CD Projekt Red people. I'm kind of curious if this is maybe like Max Payne, but no guns. Like if it's Max Payne, but it's all melee combat and driving and what have you. Like it could just be a very focused and very linear style of game, which I'd be fine with. You know, like a chapter-based, level-based, whatever kind of thing. Obviously, this trailer is very heavily edited, so it's hard to tell exactly how much of it is gameplay. But it sure looks good. Anyway, again, we don't know when that's coming out. Coming soon. Who knows when soon is. A couple of games got some release dates. So Romeo is a Dead Man, I think, is February of next year. Maybe March of next year. I'm not sure. So this is from Suda51 and Grasshopper. This was announced a good while ago, maybe Summer Games Fest, I think. And it does very much look like a merging of Shadows of the Damned and Killer is Dead. Because it's what it feels like to me. It feels like he's taking those two games that he worked on and going, yeah, I like them. Let's stick the two of them together and make another game that's very like them, which isn't a problem because, you know, they were good. Anyway, you are Romeo, who is turned into a dead man, whatever that means. There is a Juliet as well at some stage, at the beginning at least. You rescue her, and that seems to be when you were still human. Who knows what happened since then? I get a lot of Killer is Dead from this, because Killer is Dead was also a kind of you're a dead man, although technically you were a vampire, and also an alien. Killer is Dead is a very strange game, and also very horny. Anyway, it looks good, and Suda51 at the very least makes entertaining games, even if they're not amazing. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to see how this turns out, because I never played his, like, the games that he's very most well known for. The I can't even remember the fucking name of them now. The game with Travis Touchdown in, Jesus Christ, No More Heroes. But I never played any of those because they were on Nintendo consoles that I didn't own. Anyway, this one, oh wait, I didn't actually check the release date. When was the release date? Yeah, 11th of February. Moving on, almost Valentine's Day. Replaced has been delayed many times. Has not been delayed this time. I probably should start with that. It hasn't been delayed. It has a release date. This time it's in March of next year. It still looks amazing. The combat, the aesthetics, the art direction, the music, which you're not hearing, but is really good. This, I believe, is exclusive to Xbox at the moment as a console exclusive. It will be on PC as well, but you won't be able to play it on PlayStation and Nintendo just yet. Potentially later on. I don't think Microsoft owned the studio, so it's probably just a temporary deal. Anyway, 12th of March of next year for Replaced. Then while I was gone, there were 2 waves of Xbox Game Pass games. So the first one was halfway through November, and it added... Can I just make this image big? Big enough, okay. Motorfest, kind of racing game. Moonlighter 2 it's a game preview, so it's an early access thing. And it is... by day, you run like an adventurer's shop where you sell equipment and stuff like that, and by night you go into the dungeons and find things to sell, basically. Monsters Are Coming, Cosmic Invasion are 2 new releases. We'll talk about them in a minute. Banishers, Ghost of New Eden is from Don't Nod. We played it on the channel. There's a Let's Play of it. If you want to check it out, it's an action-adventure type thing set in early US colonies times. And there's ghosts everywhere, and it's a bad time. Anyway, Kill It With Fire 2 is kind of just a sandbox thing where you kill horrible things with fire. Lost Records is like episode 1, I think, of one of the other Don't Nod games. The Life is Strange dev. Culebra, Souls of Limbo is sort of like a Spiritfarer type thing, but with more of a... Mexican underworld Dia de los Muertos vibe to it. Revenge of the Savage Planet is the sequel to Journey to the Savage Planet. I am actually playing it currently. It is very funny, very satirical, and if you know the history of the developer and how they were burned by Google and Google Stadia and all of that stuff, it feels very cathartic to play because they fucking ripped the piss out of Google in that... they ripped the piss out of corporate capitalism in general, but when you know that they're definitely talking about Google, and in some ways there are specific people they're talking about, it's very good. Anyway, that was wave 1. Or technically that was wave 2 for November. This is wave 1 for December. So we got Mortal Kombat 1. It's a reboot where Liu Kang is Raiden and Raiden is Liu Kang. And there's also some other changes. Routine is a new game we'll talk about in a second. Dome Keeper is kind of a base defense, missile defense kind of game. where you have a dome. There's a city under the dome, and you're trying to protect it from things that are trying to destroy it. Death Howl. Did that come out this week? I think that's coming out next week. We'll talk about it then, because I don't quite remember what type of game it is. Digging a hole is what it sounds like. You dig a hole. It's a little bit of a power wash simulator in some ways. You're just digging a hole and finding things in it and taking those things and selling them and so on. Bratz game, no idea. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle has probably been talked about a lot already. It's first person Indiana Jones game, got a lot of hype, was pretty well received. It's a good chance if you're playing it on Xbox, you've probably already played it. 33 Immortals is a game preview, so it's an early access thing. It is a MMO raiding simulator in some ways. It's basically they just carved out the bits of an MMO that's just the raid, and that's what the game is. Monster Train 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'll be honest, I don't know what that game is. Spray Paint Simulator is Power Wash Simulator, but with a spray paint. Stellaris is a kind of space 4X type thing, I think. I can't read that. Medieval Dynasty, maybe? Sounds like a Civ thing. Could be wrong. I don't know. World War Z is a disappointing shooter. Over on PlayStation, the monthly games were not bad, actually. So Lego Horizon Adventures ordinarily is like $80. So getting that on PlayStation Plus is at least something. If you like Horizon, I guess maybe it's something for you. I don't know. I feel like Sony are pushing the Horizon IP too much, and I never got it. It just doesn't appeal to me. Killing Floor 3, I understand, is a fun first-person shooter thing. I don't know. Never played it. The Outlast Trials are a kind of co-op horror. It's not really a dungeon crawler exactly, but it's like mini bites of like an Outlast game that you play with up to 2 other friends, and it's gross in so many ways. Sinduality Ecoveta is like a gacha thing, and I'm curious why this is in PlayStation Plus. Is it a paid gacha game? I don't know. It kind of looked interesting to me until it turned out to be like a gacha thing, and as I'm playing too many of those at the moment. I can't play another one. Neon White is a very cool first-person speedrunning type game, and it is technically, I suppose, a card game. And I'm like, I don't like card games, but the cards are really more of a way to put it. They're really just UI. I guess you could technically say that for most card games, but it feels more like it's just UI here. I don't know. Anyway, it's fun. It's a really fun game. And then the Epic game that's free this week up until Thursday is Jackbox Party Pack 4. I don't know what half of these games are. Fibbage, Survive the Internet, Monster Seeking Monster, Bracketeering, and Civic Doodle are the games that are in that party pack. Anyway, those are some of the games you can play soon. What if you want to play something right now? Well, I've been away 3 weeks, so there's a lot of new games came out in the intervening time, so we're mostly going to speedrun this. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. It's been quite a while since there's been a Metroid Prime game. Anyway, I was going to say since it's been a Metroid game, but Metroid Dread. I don't know why everybody keeps forgetting about Metroid Dread. Even me. It was good. It was a good game. Anyway, it has a motorbike this time around. From what I've heard, it's okay. It's okay, and maybe the NPCs talk too much. That's kind of what I've heard from reviews. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, a little bit disappointing because, you know, Metroid Prime 1 was such a massive game for Metroid in general, that having the 4 that, you know, hasn't been one in quite a long time. It's been rumored for a very long time. It's been in and out of development for a very long time, and to have it come out and be just okay is, you know, a bit disappointing. Anyway, it's Metroid Prime 4, and there's Kirby Air Riders, another Nintendo game. Yeah, it's not kart racing. Promise. I mean, it's technically not because Kirby Air Riders, right? There's no acceleration button. The Air Riders just go, and you just have to control them. I think that's kind of the difference. And there's a lot to it. Like, there's deciding when you do want to accelerate and when you do want to slow down. But as far as I'm aware, you can't just full on stop. So there's no element of that to it. But otherwise, I'm sure other people can tell you better about it. But to me, it does just look like a kart racer. Anyway. Routine, another game that's been in development for what seems a million years. Routine has this kind of alien kind of cassette, like retro tech vibe to it. But you are up on this maybe abandoned space station. You have your lo-fi TV gun to help you deal with what seems to be some kind of viral outbreak on... I say viral, I see virus, computer virus, rather. But maybe there's some other shenanigans going on the moon that are not so technologically focused. They might be something else. So yeah, it's kind of like a first-person horror, a little bit of an alien isolation thing. I think from what I've seen from reviews, it's kind of a lot of the issues people had with Alien Isolation is you couldn't just get rid of the alien. You know, there was a way to like get them to go away for a second, but it was very hit and miss. But even then they come back to you really fast. And while that was very impressive from a technical standpoint, and a lot has been said about the AI of the alien in Alien Isolation, it does also make the game somewhat frustrating to play. At least in Routine, you can disable the robots for a pretty extended amount of time. They're not this kind of all-powerful killing machine like the Xenomorph is in Alien Isolation. You know, so you do have a little bit more time to kind of figure out puzzles and stuff like that, and you're not constantly being killed by the Xenomorph, which is, you know, it's like, I know what to do, I just can't fucking get away from the fucking Xenomorph. It keeps killing me, and I'm not playing the game anymore, and that, I think, is a lot of people's experience with Alien Isolation. Anyway, that's Routine. I believe it is an Xbox exclusive. It is also on Steam PC as well. Octopath Traveler 0 for some reason has a live action trailer. I don't know why. I'm not even sure if there's gameplay in this trailer. Anyway, Octopath Traveler 0 was a mobile gacha thing, which shut down a while ago, and has now been kind of a way to do it. It's just been redone to kind of work as a console game, as a standalone thing. There's no gacha in it anymore. And reviews have been pretty glowing for it. Like, it seems like it's been one of the better kind of ports of what used to be a mobile game. Whether it's better than Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, I don't know. But it seems at the very least, it seems like it's a fun game to play. Demon School is a game I've actually been wanting to play for a while now. It is very much Persona in a lot of ways, like a Western Persona. You are playing this person who's definitely not Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's not Buffy the Demon Slayer. And your gang, who aren't the Scooby Gang, definitely not, who are fighting ghosts and demons and what have you, all trying to get into the world. But it plays out a little bit like a Final Fantasy Tactics in some ways. You play on a grid and you're trying to get from one side of the grid to the other side of the grid to close a portal. That's genuinely how the combat plays. But there's a lot of other things you see in it. Like, there's a lot of little mini games and what have you. So it is trying to be like a really big JRPG in some ways. But at the same time, kind of a Western focus. Anyway, that's Demon School. Moving on, Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Because I keep calling Comic Invasion, but it's not. It's Cosmic Invasion. Anyway, so this is a very old school beat 'em up from the people who make and have been making very, very good beat 'em ups in the last while. .emu. Kind of the gimmick here is being able to swap between your characters mid-combo and being like comboing into different characters and stuff like that. So you will have two characters all the time that you can swap between, and that's carries on for each player. So if you're playing in co-op, they also have two characters they swap between. So they have like cool combos you can stack on top of them and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a good game. I think there's a demo of it available as well if you want to give it a shot. Thief VR is technically Thief 5. I suppose, because it is technically a sequel. And the main character, Garrett, is in it. Technically. I'm saying technically a lot because maybe not so much. He's kind of a voice in your head. Whether he's your master or what have you, I'll let you figure that out yourselves if you want to play the game. I won't spoil it. But yeah, it's... so I've seen gameplay of it. I actually haven't seen many reviews of it. But gameplay of it I've seen has been pretty good. It's got a little cool elements. It's got a lot of the VR stuff that people like tactile movement and being able to actually climb on things. And one thing I have noticed is it does have a dedicated crouch button rather than relying on you to actually crouch, which is probably good for a stealth game. One thing I don't like though is that you're just floating hands. I just don't like the floating hands thing in VR. I get why it's done. I just don't like it. But yeah, it does look like it's pretty good, and it does look like it's pretty responsive. You saw them there just pick up a helmet and knock out the guy with it. Like, that's pretty clever. And not really something you would typically come across in a regular flat game. Anyway, I don't think this has a flat version. I think this is straight up just a VR game. But maybe later there might be one. Anyway, I believe it's on all VR platforms as well. Moving on... Sleep Awake is one of the latest kind of Blumhouse games. So Blumhouse are a pretty well-known horror movie production company and have kind of more recently jumped into video games. So Sleep Awake, the idea in Sleep Awake is there's some kind of disease going around that is killing people in their sleep. It's definitely not Nightmare on Elm Street. And the deal is your character has this drug that is keeping them awake, but because they're like sleep deprived, they're like hallucinating, psychosis, and all of that jazz. You also encounter other people who have found other ways to keep themselves awake. Some of them are, resorting to just indescribable pain to keep them awake, but they get dulled to it over time. So you have to find even more ways to hurt themselves to keep themselves awake, and so on and so forth. And it's led to a society that's regressing and that kind of thing. It's a cool concept, and I think the game itself is okay, which is a little bit disappointing. But yeah, that's that one out. Ayla is... See, I thought this was a VR game, but it's actually not. It's a flat game that just has a VR presentation to it. So technically in the game, you're a playtester for what will be a VR game, and it's being helped by some kind of AI playtesting manager or something like that, who's changing the game to make it more difficult for you or to elicit a different response from you, and it goes rogue and yada yada yada, and now it's trying to kill you kind of thing. I was a lot more interested in this when I thought it actually was a VR game, but it's not. It's a first-person game that just happens to have a VR presentation to it. Maybe they'll make it a VR game at some point. Moving on, Four Strike I thought was a really cool idea. So Four Strike is a roguelike, but the kind of gist of Four Strike is you have as many opportunities as you want to fight the same fight over and over and over again until you're ready to commit to it. And then you have one chance to get it right. So all of the enemies all have different kind of requirements to beating them. Some of them can't be hit because they'll block you. Some of them will dodge your first attack. Some of them will take multiple attacks to take out, and so on. And you'll need to decide what exactly is your plan going through the different combat scenarios. And you can do that as often as you want up until you decide, okay, now it's for real. Now I'm going to do it properly. And you got to do it right that time. Otherwise, you go back to the beginning. And it's difficult to describe to you when you know that if you don't get it right, you're going back to the beginning. The amount of like adrenaline after that, and where you're just thinking, oh, I can't fuck it up this time. You can fuck it up as much as you want until you decide it's time to go, and then are you going to choke pretty much? And the answer is yes. You're going to choke anyway. And you can parry daggers back at people. That part's pretty fun. All right. Anyway, Monsters Are Coming. This is one of the games that was coming to Xbox Game Pass. So Monsters Are Coming. Rock and Road is kind of a tower defense. Not really tower defense, like a base defense kind of thing, except your base is constantly moving. And you're constantly upgrading it. So yeah, it's a roguelike kind of thing. You kind of see how far you can get through the area. And you're having to decide whether or not you're going to jump off your base and go in and collect resources, then jump back on your base while it's still safe and so on. So it's a kind of a risk-reward element to it. And then deciding what kind of upgrades you're going to make to your base and that kind of thing. So I think it's got, there's a lot there. It's a pretty deep system if you really want to get into it. But the basic gist of it is the same. You're trying to build a big base, see how far you can get, and maybe you get a little bit further every time. Moving on. I forget now, what was the other game that was on Game Pass that I was going to talk about? Was it 4 Strike? Maybe it was 4 Strike. Anyway, Neon Inferno. I actually haven't heard much about it, and to be fair, I am going mostly on its visuals rather than its actual gameplay. I don't know if it's like a fun game to play or not, but visually, it looks pretty good. It does remind me of kind of the old Metal Slug games. It's obviously not as chaotic as those games, but it does seem pretty cool, attacking things in the background while attacking things in the foreground. It's maybe a little bit Sunset Riders as well. This kind of parrying ability to redirect projectiles and stuff like that could be pretty cool, pretty interesting. But yeah, I haven't seen any reviews for this, so I don't know how well it was received. Anyway, unfortunately, fuck, it took me a while to get here. Anyway, that's 3 weeks for you. Unfortunately, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, the video game industry. So the big news this week is Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers. And then some additional news that wasn't ready in time for this video, but it's that Paramount have decided to come back into the picture. And because they have such a close tie with the US administration, it's possible that the deal with Netflix might get scuppered and Paramount will go and get Warner Bros. Instead, which would be way, way worse. But Netflix having it isn't great either. Anyway, so coming from Kotaku, Mortal Kombat, Hogwarts Legacy, and the Batman Arkham are going to a company that closed its only AAA game studio. So Netflix doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to video games. It has a very bad one, if anything. Worse than Warner Bros., if it can be believed. Warner Bros. At least had some successful games. Netflix has had 0 successful games. Anyway, so Netflix is bidding $80 billion to buy Warner Bros. Probably not doing it for the games, but they're going to be getting a ton of them anyway along the way. Netflix's incredibly chaotic fumbling of gaming over the last several years raises some alarm bells. So games are going to be part of the transaction. It has been confirmed with Warner Brothers themselves that yes, the gaming side of things will be part of the merger, if you like. But as you can see on this slide, it's clearly not the main thing they're going for. It was lumped in with 2 other things, consumer products and experiences. So consumer products are like toys, merch, that kind of thing. And experiences is probably like the amusement parks, that kind of thing. So clearly games is not the thing they're, it's been lumped in on its own over here. It's clearly like it's this shit. This is the shit they really wanted. Even though they're going to be getting like things like Hogwarts Legacy, sold over 30 million copies. In terms of revenue, it did a lot better than even Superman. Traveler's Tales with the Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga similarly made a lot of money revenue-wise. Again, we're saying revenue rather than profit is a different thing. So there are a couple of games that are still in development. Lego Batman: Legacy of the Dark Knight from TT is still in development. NetherRealm are allegedly working on Injustice 3. So whether they'll be allowed to continue, we kind of assume there's a Hogwarts Legacy 2. Maybe. That's not official, but it's assumed that's what they're working on, considering how well the first one did. But anyway, that's from Warner Brothers' side of things. Then obviously we have a bit of the elephant in the room. Rocksteady Studios, Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, lost them a shit ton of money. It's alleged that they're gone back to Batman Arkham. That's going to be years out. It's whether Netflix is going to give them that opportunity. As you may know, if you watch a lot of TV, Netflix cancels their TV shows even when they're very successful. So who knows whether they'll allow that to happen. Then we have, of course, all the other studios that Warner Brothers shut down in the meantime. Multiversus, Player First Games, Warner Bros. San Diego, who I think they were a support studio, and they were working on some kind of free-to-play thing. Monolith are the Condemned developers, but they also did the Middle-earth games, and they were working on Wonder Woman before that was cancelled. And that also led to their publisher being ousted in the first place. But Netflix's side of things is decidedly worse. So Netflix bought up a bunch of studios, including Night School Studios, who made Oxenfree, and Spry Fox, who made Cozy Grove. And then it piled a bunch of indie games onto the Netflix app. So you could play things like Hades, Rise of the Golden Idol, and a couple of other things. I think the GTA trilogy was on there at one point. But the problem was nobody played them. And nobody continues to play them. And at this point, they're stripping out a lot of those games now. And a lot of that, I think, is just how many people even knew games were on the app anyway. So since then, Netflix has been abandoning a bunch of indie games. It's been cutting resources. It closed down its only AAA game studio. They didn't even get a game done. They have sold Spry Fox back to Spry Fox. They've gone fully independent again. Night School Studios were not as lucky. I think they are potentially shutting down. So their big focus right now are party games and quick turnaround licensed shit. You can see their Squid Games and Bridgerton games, you'll understand. So what's going to happen to the Warner Brothers games and the whole portfolio? So that's kind of the issue, games-wise at least. The bigger issue for the Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers is that it's just made the entertainment industry much smaller. And similarly, it's such a big merger, there's going to be a lot of layoffs. Netflix don't have a great track record of letting things cook, letting things get to seasons 3, 4, 5. How well they handle film, bringing things actually out to the cinema, not really something Netflix does, and so on. So there's those kind of issues. On top of that, they're not taking a lot of the Discovery side of it. So they're not taking TNT, they're not taking the Discovery Channel, they're not taking the Learning Channel, History Channel, Ancient Aliens and all that stuff. They're not taking CNN, the news thing, which I guess doesn't really work with Netflix, I suppose. So that's probably makes sense. There's a bit of a rumor that Paramount's kind of pressuring to try to get back into this deal is a way to sort of force the sale of CNN so that Paramount could own CNN before the US midterm elections. If you're not aware, Paramount is currently owned by David Ellison, who's Larry Ellison's son. Larry Ellison is a big Trump fan, basically, and they want to, I think, already own CBS. And then they would also own CNN at that point. So having two big news outlets to be able to fashion into a Fox News light, it's not great. Anyway, that has nothing to do with video games. We're going to move on. So Inside Gaming has a bit of a rundown on what studios Warner Brother Games owns currently and the ones that are currently active. So most of them you're probably aware of. Avalanche Software are working on Hogwarts Legacy and probably Hogwarts Legacy 2. NetherRealm Studios are Mortal Kombat and probably Injustice at this point. Rocksteady Studios were Arkham, the Arkham games, and Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and are allegedly now working on another Batman game. Maybe. TT Games, Traveler's Tales Games are the Lego guys, Lego Batmans and so on. And they are working on Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight kind of thing. That's pretty far in development, and you would hope Netflix would just be like, yeah, okay, finish the game. But what happens afterwards, we don't know. Traveler's Tales itself is broken down into a bunch of other things. Some that are porting, some that just do the publishing side of things, some that are just strictly for mobile games. World War Games Montreal is a support studio for the most part, but they did work on Gotham Knights, I think, as well. Yeah, Gotham Knights is their thing, and I think they are working on another AAA live service thing set in DC Comics, which is like, how many times we got to teach you this lesson, old man? WB Games Boston is the Lord of the Rings online game. WB Games New York is a support studio. Don't think they make their own thing. Not directly involved. Yeah, okay. San Fran is mobile games. So that's that. So kind of the bigger ones are here. WB Games Montreal, TT Games, Rocksteady, NetherRealm, and Avalanche to see what Netflix does with them, basically. Okay, so we had another kind of censorship thing on Steam, and in this case, it doesn't seem like it was because of like a MasterCard Visa situation that a lot of the other censorship things seem to have been. So, Sant'Origioni, the developer, has a new game out called Horses. And Horses is, in a lot of ways, more of a interactive film than it is a game. And the game itself is mostly about how mercantilism, consumerism, and capitalism in general kind of turn people into animals. And in some cases, horses, because the idea is that they're like beasts of burden in some ways, and that horses have to be broken and this kind of thing to make them tame and rideable and what have you. And that's kind of the overarching story, but there's a lot of kind of like sexual stuff, undertones to it as well. But it's like, it's not really bad or anything. It's not like egregious, not safe for work or anything. It's like, it's fine. It's tame. It's in some cases, coming from cinema now, it's a lot for video games, but for in terms of cinema, TV, not really. Anyway, but because they've now been effectively banned from Steam, and more recently they've also been banned from Epic, the studio is likely going to have to shut down. So this is coming from Pietro Riva, who's the co-founder of Sant'Origioni. So there's a dozen failed attempts to find a viable way to finance the studio's upcoming game. Horses has been indefinitely banned from Steam. After launch, we will wind down operations and face a high risk of closing the studio, according to their statement. So this is kind of recapping what happened when they submitted their game to Valve in the first place. So when you're submitting your game to Valve, you make your Steam page, you fill in all the details yourself, and then you basically press the review button. And Valve are meant to come back and say yes or no. And they kind of felt that there was going to be a problem because Valve took a while to get back. It was weird because usually these page submissions are pretty quick. So I pinged them, and after a while they're like, before we can approve the page, you have to submit a complete build of the game to let us play through the entire game, which is something that's never happened to us before. Now this is pretty rare and pretty burdensome to put on a developer, because this would have happened in June of 2023. Which means the game itself is probably not in a playable state. It's probably just little snippets. I imagine it's not even in beta yet. So there's probably a lot of work to do to get it to be in a functioning state in the first place, never mind being actually playable. So the project had been in active development since early 2021, but it wasn't even halfway finished by the time Valve were asking for a fully playable build. So we were able to scramble together a complete version of the game to satisfy the digital retailer's demands, but there was a lot of placeholder shit. There's a lot of no audio, no animations, just complete scenes missing and stuff like that. I start panicking. I start emailing my Steam contract, and I'm like, what's going on? We need to release the page. One day before the announcement, we get an automated message. After review, we will not be able to ship your game, Horses, on Steam. While we strive to ship most titles submitted to us, we found that this title features themes, imagery, or descriptions that we won't distribute. Regardless of the developer's intentions with their product, we will not distribute content that appears, in our judgment, to depict sexual conduct involving a minor. What the fuck? Okay, well, every product submitted is unique. If your product features this representation, even in a subtle way that could be defined as a gray area, it will be rejected by Steam. For instance, setting your game in a high school but declaring your characters are of legal age would fall into that category and be banned, which is every anime ever. This app has been banned and cannot be reused. Resubmissions of this app, even with modifications, will not be accepted. Now, that's kind of bullshit. And And I'm wondering if this is just a technicality. Is it the idea that the specific build that they sent, if they just edit that build, is that not allowed? Or are they saying just the game entirely? They're just, never mind. I don't care if you edit out that whole thing or censor that whole thing. We're not letting it in. It's not clear. And the problem is that's about as clear as Valve got. They didn't even point out what scene they were talking about. The developer says they think it's this scene, maybe, that had been changed anyway and has been changed later. Not because of Valve, it's like they were going to change it anyway. It's just what they had in place. Anyway, Sanderigioni was never able to get Valve to point out which scene in Horses triggered the bar. They suspect that it was one particular scene where they put a child on the back of one of the horses as a riding thing, like you do at farms. You know, you can get kids to ride around on older horses and older donkeys and stuff like that. The issue is that, of course, the horses in the game are people with horse heads and their dicks are out. So it's like, okay, there might be a problem there, I suppose. But yeah, they said the dialogue works better when it was delivered with a grown-up, so they changed it so that it was an older woman who was riding around on the horse. But either way, the Steam weren't budging. A similar thing happened with Vile Exhumed. This wasn't about minors this time around. It was because they were using sexual content with depictions of real people. It was like documentary footage or something like that they were using. Because they were trying to tell the story of this particular person. Anyway, Valve weren't having it. Footage seen in the game contains no nudity and was either filmed and produced with credited actors or sourced from reputable, fully traceable stock libraries, but Valve don't care, it seems. Again, we're saying it seems because we don't really know what the problem was. As we said, the final game doesn't have this issue in it, but Valve still are like, no. Anyway, at the time we had around 50 grand invested in the game. Obviously, everyone in the team knew that it was going to be really hard going forward. This is when they find out that they're not going to be on Steam. And as much as you can say that there are multiple PC game fronts, Steam is very much the big game in town. They are, in some ways, a monopoly. They're not quite, but they're very close to it. We basically continued developing with the money that we had left, but finding proper funding to complete the game at this point was basically impossible. No publisher in the world will fund a game that's not coming out on Steam, and that's kind of the real problem there. So if you're going to the publisher and saying, yeah, but we're actually banned on Steam, yeah, we're not going to publish you. But they did try, and they come to people and said, yeah, and we'd be like, sure, except there's just one problem. And the publisher would say, oh, it's okay. We know people at Valve. We'll get this sorted out, yada, yada, yada. And then they come back and go, yeah, they're not going to budge. So that's that. The director of Horses had to say that I was quite shocked and in disbelief because I had invested so much of my life into this project. I saw it as a major step forward for myself and my future. And after all of that, it felt like everything was falling apart. I was left with a sense of helplessness, reflecting on how you can sacrifice parts of your life to achieve something and then a big company can just erase all your efforts in a second. The artistic intention of the game was to push the boundaries of the medium regarding the kinds of topics you can address in a video game, even extreme ones, in a way that cinema already does. Like I said, in cinema, this wasn't really a big deal. And the dicks are censored anyway. So yeah. Anyway, I don't want to make the final decision before seeing how the game does on launch, but if things go the way that I expect them to go, then I think the studio's closure is inevitable. All the money we'll earn is going to go to the author and to the people who have offered money to finish the project, so there will likely be no money left to make a new game unless a miracle happens and Horses does very well. It's possible. I think one thing we've been doing as a studio is trying to push the boundaries of what video games can be, and that means pushing on the visual tools that represent games, mechanics, and content. Eventually, if you are trying to engage with topics about the human condition, you'll end up talking about violence, power dynamics, and some of the sensitive things that are represented in Horses. Anyway, there was an update. Games industry reached out to Valve themselves to see what the issue was, and they basically said that we communicated to the developer that our final decision that we were not going to ship the game on Steam, so they just don't want to hear anything more about it. Which is a pretty shitty position to be in when you are de facto monopoly on the PC gaming market. And as I said earlier, Epic Games said the same thing. They weren't going to hold the game. So that's the next biggest PC game store down. Good Old Games is holding it for now. Itch.io is also holding it. And Humble Bundle, I think, is also selling the game. Which is how you know it's not a MasterCard Visa thing, because Itch.io are keeping it. And Itch.io have been very, very scared about doing anything to anger MasterCard at this point. So it just seems like Valve decided no, for whatever reason. Anyway, moving on. Go away, cookies. Skybound Games faces $4 million lawsuit from IM8-bit over fraud claims. Now, I probably should have put this one after the Netflix story, because Skybound... No, wait. Is it Skybound or is it different? Hang on, I need to check this. Because I know Paramount merged with something called Sky, and I thought it was Skybound, but maybe it's not. Oh, it's Skydance. Okay, never mind. It's a different one. So Skybound Games faces lawsuit. So Skybound, as you can see, were a lot of the old Telltale games. It's the new studio, basically. Anyway, they're facing a sizable lawsuit which alleges fraud, a breach of contract, and theft of original designs. Skybound has failed to explain financial discrepancies logged over the years between the two partners, despite being asked to multiple times. So they began their partnership in April of 2021. Skybound has always failed to deliver monthly financial reports as agreed. It's like 4 years of 4 years of months. That's a lot of failing to report. And has added millions of dollars in fake line items to expense reports, so it's padding its expenses as well. Alleged, anyway. An impartial auditor was introduced to the debate, and even then, Skybound couldn't or wouldn't explain the finances situation. Anyway, so IM8-bit have accused Skybound Games of cutting it out of a deal related to Stray. That's the cat game. Skybound used original designs created by IM8-bit for promotional purposes to secure a separate deal for Nintendo's Switch release of the game. It has also been argued that Skybound has exploited trade secrets while scalping IM8-bit's creative output for marketing purposes. So this is kind of just dropped. As far as I'm aware, Skybound have not given their side of the story. So IM8-bit, if you're not familiar, are typically a merch company that also do physical releases. Like they do like limited releases of physical games. And never minding the weird expenses stuff, which is already a problem. But the idea here with Stray was that IM8-bit were going to publish a physical version of the game. And it's alleged here that Skybound cut in and then got a deal to publish the game on the Nintendo Switch instead of doing a physical run. For IM8-bit, so kind of lost them a potential client basically, and we're supposed to be in a partnership, so it's a bit of like a hostile partner situation going on here. Anyway, 4 million for the lawsuit. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, this one kind of only has just happened. Why do I have this up? Anyway, Roblox CEO makes utter fool of himself in car crash interview over child safety. So I want to point this one out. Because technically this interview was held with the New York Times. The New York Times podcast specifically, which isn't really a video game focused thing. It's a lot broader than that. But the whole gist of the interview is kind of going on how Roblox is not safe for children, and is a pedophile hellscape, I believe is how it was described. And the CEO is basically just completely unprepared for what should have been very obvious questions that were going to be asked. And he seems very combative, very aggressive, and childish in his responses. Anyway, so the CEO spoke to the New York Times. It didn't go great. It really, really didn't go great. So again, a bit of background. Roblox has been described as a pedophile hellscape by the Hindenburg Research Company, has since disbanded. There's a network of pedophiles who use the game to find victims, allegedly. There are, like, it says 35 other ongoing lawsuits. I think it's 40 in total at this point, all about predator stuff. Roblox are trying to say that we're changing our methods for checking players' ages. We're adding facial ID that definitely works all the time and isn't really, really bad, and definitely can't just be circumvented by a VPN or a picture of your dad. Anyway, so being asked about these kind of things, the scope of the problem of predators in the application, the CEO came in saying, well, we think of it not necessarily just as a problem, but an opportunity as well. The great opportunity afforded when you have a child predator problem on your platform. What a great opportunity. Okay. So then asked, like, how are the ID checks going to work? Why, what's going to stop them not being so easily evaded as all the others are? They basically say that we look for weird signals and then we'll ask for further age verification. Asked what that meant, he didn't say. He didn't explain what these weird signals might be, nor what these further checks were going to be. How are you going to further check a person's age? Anyway, do you ask them, like, pop culture questions and see if they have the answer? Anyway, why has it taken 19 years to even try to stop adults from being able to speak to children? And he had a bunch of bullshit to say about text filters that didn't really answer the question in any way. It's very rudimentary, like Club Penguin levels of censoring things, but it's clearly not working. Like, the predators are clearly still finding a way to get around it. So Casey Newton, who was holding the interview, responded to all of this kind of bullshit about text filtering. That, I mean, I don't know. When I read these lawsuits and these investigations into the company, it does not seem like predators are having that hard of a time getting around your filters. I'm curious what's made you so confident that things are working. And then the CEO, who's on this interview to talk about the safety controls for this, says, I don't want to comment on it. Why are you here? And also, don't you think this is a pretty bad thing to have associated with your product? Don't you think you might want to have a comment on it? I think you might want to comment on it. You might want to do that. They go in talking about some of the other things they've done, but we're not doing this because of any laws that are coming. We think it's the right thing to do, except you don't, because you don't want to comment on it. Also, I don't want to comment on it, but anyway. So then asked whether he truly doesn't believe Roblox has a predator problem. I think we're doing an incredible job at innovating relative to the number of people on our platform and the hours in really leaning into the future of how this is going to work. What? That was English. These individual words are all English, but this sentence did not make sense. Anyway, asked if he really doesn't believe there's a predator problem. We're doing an incredible job at innovating. We're real innovators in the whole child predator space, I guess, is what he's saying. Is what he's saying here? Because he's not saying anything really. What he's kind of saying here is that the platform is so big that, like, if we weren't doing a good job of it, this problem would be worse. But obviously it was a terrible way to answer the question. But yeah, he's very ill prepared for such obvious questions and has no coherent responses for why any of this new tech will be effective, despite the whole reason him being on the interview to talk about it. He seems to believe that the scale of Roblox is somehow an excuse to justify its problems. But even more confusing, if the scale of Roblox is the reason why this is such a problem, you probably shouldn't want the company numbers to keep growing, except that's exactly what he wants, because capitalism. Anyway, and obviously calling it an amazing financial opportunity because of all the predators. Yes, makes sense. We'll come to this image in a second. Anyway, there was a question over the Hindenburg research report, which was the whole pedophile hellscape thing, and he basically just just became a giant child. Let's keep going down this. And so first off, Hindenburg is no longer in existence, right? So you should report on that. They went out of business for some reason. He then demands that the interviewer say that if AI is proved to be better, if AI is proved to be more effective, then it's better to use it. And the interviewer agrees. And then he goes very immature, saying, "Good, so you're aligning with what we did. High five. Thank you for supporting our Roblox decision matrix. I'm so glad you guys are aligned with the way we run Roblox. High five." And so on and so forth. It was if AI is more effective, then it's better to use it. That's a big if. And Casey Newton was basically agreeing, yeah, if it's been proved that it's more effective, but it hasn't. And we've got quite a few stories here to talk about generative AI. But yeah, it's not working. Anyway, the only thing that stopped this tantrum was talking about crypto betting. That guess what? He wants to bring to children. That's right. He wants gambling inside Roblox. So that's what this whole image is about. Would you ever put a prediction market inside Roblox? Like let kids bet with their Robux and say, I bet he's going to steal a tung, whatever the fuck that is. They're going to do dress to impress. And he's like, yeah, I totally would. Not getting that this is a joke. Totally saying that, yeah, we'll definitely do that. Oh, to be clear, I think this is a horrible idea. I was just interested if you were thinking about it. I think it's a brilliant idea. Of course you do. Yeah, start them young. That's what I always say. When it comes to gambling, you're never too young, etc., etc. So he's not getting at all that you're trying to bring gambling to children. Anyway. Continuing with tech CEOs who are intent on just ruining everything. Anyway, one of PC gaming's key RAM manufacturers aren't selling to the regular humans anymore, so they can peddle more kit to AI companies. So this is Micron shutting down their Crucial line of RAM and SSDs, which was a consumer market thing, and they're basically only going to be selling like directly to Gen AI and to AI data centers and what have you. So there's already like a mass shortage of RAM because of companies like OpenAI and because of prospective data centers that have not been built yet, but they're still buying the RAM and just having it sit on a shelf, which has led to RAM costs going way, way up. So, like, RAM you would have bought for like 250, 300 euro dollars. It's like $1,000 now. And this is only going to get worse now the Crucial are leaving the market. That Micron are leaving the consumer market. Micron has made the difficult decision to exit the Crucial consumer business in order to improve supply and support for our larger strategic customers in faster growing segments. We're going to make more money off this generative AI bubble before it pops. So there's a whole bunch of AI data centers popping up. Some of them haven't cropped up yet. They're just proposed. But it hasn't stopped companies buying a bunch of RAM to put in there as well. So it's more profitable use than merely supplying grassroots interest in computing and gaming. So shipments will continue up until 2026, and I think by the end of February they will basically stop selling consumer in general. So that's cool. So the cost of RAM is about to go way up, if not be completely inaccessible for the regular person. That's going to be fun. I can't wait to see all of the schools that try to buy new Chromebooks in the next school year or the school year after that and find that they just can't. That's going to be a fun one. Or any kind of enterprise company that needs to replace their laptops or replace their PCs or anything and find that the cost has just gone astronomical. It's going to be good. Anyway, moving on. So a couple of these stories now are just going over some stuff that did crop up in the last couple of episodes of this that we've done. So this is a new video from People Make Games talking about the Rockstar firing of the 32 people from Rockstar and basically saying why they were fired or what Rockstar's excuse for why they were firing them. So this is kind of going over the time leading up to the firing. So the gist of it is, we won't go through it because the video is quite long, but the gist of it is Rockstar put out a new social media policy, basically. And it culled a bunch of, we'll say, special interest channels in their internal Slack. So it's stuff like the gaming channel, or the fun and humor channel, or the pets channel and stuff like that. Stuff that was considered off topic or off work kind of thing, that tons of offices have. And it's vital that it's there, because it allows people to just take a break from work and to also kind of bond with their other people who they're working with, so they can work a little bit better and be more productive instead of just trying to turn everybody into a robot. But that's what Rockstar wanted to do. They wanted everybody to be a robot. So they were claiming that all of these channels were reducing production or productivity or what have you, and people talking in it were being unprofessional and what have you and stuff like that. Now, from the gist of it, in the Discord channel, which is the one that had the union members in it and the one that had the union itself in it, this is roundly mocked, basically, to say that Take-Two are talking bullshit. It's definitely not hurting productivity. And this is just, they got angry because one of the channels was also used for people to talk about video game industry news. And they were talking about the layoffs. And things were coming up there to say, hey, maybe we should get a union going. And then people were going in saying, hey, there's a Discord channel here where you can talk to the union, and so on and so forth. So it's somewhat assumed that Take-Two cut down on these channels and used the productivity shit as an excuse to basically get rid of the union talk on the internal Slack. So this policy would have been posted outside of working hours. You would have only been able to access it through your email. And because of the way the VPN is set up in Rockstar, you could only access your email on site. So anybody who was off site at the time, which would have been a lot of people because this was after the working day in the UK, were unaware of this policy change. They wouldn't know it had happened. So they're asking other people in the Discord channel, what did the policy say? And people are then quoting the policy in the Discord channel, and then one person just transcribed the whole thing into it as well. And then Rockstar used that as leaking of company information. Their fucking social media policy. A thing that they couldn't read because of your stupid VPN setup, because you so mistrust your employees. But anyway, that's what the issue is, or at least that's what they're saying, is apparently gross misconduct and required them to be fired immediately and not a warning because it's just a fucking social media policy. It's not like they leaked GTA 6's ending or something. This would have made no material impact to Rockstar's bottom line. Anyway, that's the gist of it. The video goes into a little bit more background and you get a little bit more of an idea of how the employees are feeling about it. And there's a lot more detail that I'm giving you. And I do encourage you to watch the whole video. Anyway, we're going to move on from that. There was also a story earlier in the year that Marathon had stolen a bunch of art assets. And the artist called them out on it to basically say that this is a bit shit, but also I don't have the money to go up against fucking Sony's lawyers, so maybe I'm just going to have to bite the bullet here. But apparently it has been settled. We don't know the exact extent, whether money passed hands or they were credited or what's happening. But the Marathon art issue has been resolved with Bungie and Sony Interactive to my satisfaction, which is according to the artist Anti-Real. Neither company has issued a statement about the presumed settlement or compensation, nor has Anti-Real shared specifics. So we don't know, but according to them, they're satisfied that the issue is resolved. So Marathon has one good news story, or not even a good, because it was a bad news story first. And then the good news just resets it, I suppose. Anyway. Moving on. Okay, a little bit of better news. So Riot sells Hytale IP and Hypixel brand back to the original co-founder. So a while ago, 5 months ago even, Riot Games announced that it would be ending development of the long gestating game Hytale, which is a little bit it's a little bit Minecraft, it's a little bit Roblox. Riot said it agreed to divest the brand and return ownership to Simon Collins LaFlamme after considering multiple offers. The sale includes the entire IP as well as its assets, including the Hypixel brand and related IP. So that's pretty rare. Extremely rare for the publisher to actually give up the IP as well. Like, not just development. Like, they're fully divested from it. Like, they're fully like, here, take all of it. We don't know how much. I don't think it's stated how much it was. Over the past several months, we carefully considered a range of options for the future of Hytale. Ultimately, after reviewing multiple offers, we made the decision to sell the IP and game assets back to its original co-founder. And the co-founder had to say, the Hytale has always been deeply personal to me and to our community. I'm grateful to Riot for giving me the opportunity to bring it back home. There's still a lot of work ahead. My goal is simple: get the game into players' hands as soon as possible, build something special together. I've already rehired 30 developers who know this game inside and out, and additional developers are expected to come on soon. That's pretty good. You know, at least the game isn't just being canned entirely, and people who have been following it have been eager to play it, and the people who've been working on it for so long can actually put something on their CV, or their resume. Other news I have heard, though, from Hytale is that the dev build currently is quite old. For whatever reason, they don't have access to the most up-to-date one. Might have something to do with Riot ownership or something like that. I don't know. And also, they're skipping Steam, I think, for early access for some reason. There's some other shenanigans in there you might want to check out, but at least on the surface, this seems like a good deal for Hytale and Hypixel. So Saudi Arabia acquiring pretty much all of EA. So we didn't know at the time how much of the breakdown was going to be because there were a couple of different consortiums involved in this acquisition. So it's the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners were the three different cohorts. But it does seem like the Public Investment Fund will have pretty much the whole thing, 93%. And then Silver Lake and Affinity Partners will be 5.5 and 1.1 respectively. So Jared Kushner owns 1.1% of EA. Cool. Anyway, EA has discussed the potential impact of the deal at length in a series of SEC filings and claims the move won't result in immediate layoffs. You don't own anything anymore, EA. You don't get a say in that. The company also told employees it will retain creative control under its new ownerships. You don't own it anymore, EA. You don't get a say in that. This is bullshit. This whole thing. They have no power to influence this in any way whatsoever. Anyway, rest of this article is kind of talking about how the Communication Workers of America, the union, are like, this is a terrible, terrible deal because almost all of it is, like, half of it is debt. Where is it? 20 billion in debt financing. So out of the 55 billion, 20 billion of it is debt financing. Should be illegal. Anyway. But wait, there's more. Because, now maybe not necessarily because of this particular investment, because the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund has been buying lots of things. But is reportedly running low on cash for investments following the EA deal. Now, again, I don't think it's just the EA deal that did it. It's all of the many things they've been trying to buy. So the Public Investment Fund originally is about trying to make the Saudi economy less reliant on proceeds from oil. It's been a long video. The Public Investment Fund could be set to close its wallet for the time being due to several projects that are in financial distress. So among them are Neom, the ski resort in the middle of the desert. I don't know how good skiing is on sand. I can't imagine it's very good. Anyway, they've got a coffee chain with one shop. They've got a cruise line with one ship and an electric vehicle company with no car that has yet to deliver a car. They don't even have the one car at this time. they spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of cash, and they're not making it back yet. So it's a potential they've done the thing here where Xbox bought Activision for $69 billion and then promptly tanked Xbox. I kind of feel like that was the beginning of Xbox just completely losing itself. Maybe people who've been following it more would say it was earlier than that, but that feels like it was the tipping point, we'll say. And maybe this is the tipping point for the Saudi Arabia pulling investment fund. I doubt it. But it'd be pretty funny if EA... if EA's touch of death also killed... like, it kills so many other video game studios. It'd be pretty funny if it killed the whole country. It won't, but it'd be pretty funny. All right, anyway, moving on. So I was saying a bunch of Gen AI shit the last couple of videos. So our last couple of news items here are pretty much all around that. Starting with the whole Krafton Subnautica 2 situation. So the Krafton CEO was accused by the three Subnautica 2 guys that were fired of claiming that he used ChatGPT to try to figure out a way to get around paying the $250 million bonus. And the CEO at the time denied that he had done that, but has now come out later to say, oh, yeah, actually I did. So the three leads claim Krafton CEO consulted ChatGPT about ways the company could get around paying the much discussed $250 million bonus. Now remember, they're not... Krafton's position is that they fired these guys because they leaked company secrets and stole company secrets and weren't doing their job. That's not what he asked ChatGPT. He asked ChatGPT how to not pay the bonus. Anyway, Krafton subsequently said in a statement to Kotaku that this allegation from the ex-lead was simply a distraction from their own efforts to destroy evidence. And to be fair, he didn't say no there. Anyway, the exec concedes now that he did, in fact, consult ChatGPT about aspects of the Subnautica 2 situation. Said he chatted to various teams within the companies and then searched on ChatGPT, to get faster answers to figure out what kind of rights we have, adding that he used it just like Google search. These are the fucking idiots who are in charge of video game companies. Anyway, a message the CEO then sent to Krafton's head of corporate development. He wrote, now ChatGPT is starting to answer that it is difficult to cancel the earnout. If so, this is a contract under which we can only be dragged around. Anyway, asked why that and another conversation the CEO had with ChatGPT about the situation were subsequently deleted. They said, ChatGPT can use certain important information concerning your company. Then that type of information can be used by OpenAI for learning purposes. Like, deleting the logs won't stop that. You've already inputted it into the machine. But also, isn't he the guy who's trying to go AI first for Krafton? And if you have this concern about OpenAI, maybe stop using it? Anyway, whether it's really appropriate for a CEO to be turning to an AI chatbot for help with a situation of this gravity, no, it is not. The impression that Krafton aren't being transparent about their motivations in deleting all of their stuff, yes, that's not great either. It's also interesting to hear the CEO of a company this committed to generative AI as a tool expressing anxiety about what these tools do with our data. Yes, very good. But also, I used it just like Google search. If you don't get it yet, it's not like that. It's making shit up. You are better doing the Google search. Oh my god. These are the guys in charge. Anyway. But wait, it gets worse. A new Postal game was announced. Well, maybe this one's better. A new Postal game was announced and then cancelled immediately because of AI slop within just 48 hours. So the Postal games... So this is coming from John Walker, who's a bit of a curmudgeon, and he just doesn't like Postal in general. So the tone of this article is kind of keeping like good riddance. For what it's worth, Postal 2 is okay. Maybe the rest of them aren't so great, but whatever. Anyway, Postal Bullet Paradise earns the slop mantle for a different reason after massive backlash against its prolific use of AI, has seen it cancelled in the same week it was announced. Revealed just 2 days ago, December 3rd, Running with Scissors, the developer, promoted the upcoming game. Running with Scissors are the publisher. The developer is Goon Swarm Games. Okay. They mean goon as in henchman, not goon as in jizzing. All right, anyway. Upcoming game, they had a Steam page, there was a trailer, they had some sections on their own website, and then like a couple of days later, all of that's gone. There was a big backlash about it. They were saying like the trailer has AI generated material, there's AI art in the trailer, the website has AI generated stuff in it. Goon Swarm have used AI in their previous games and so on. Goon Swarm themselves, I have to keep fucking saying Goon Swarm, were very combative, calling people assholes and saying it was bullshit about the generative AI stuff, only to then say, yes, there's generative AI in it. Anyway, Running with Scissors, who are the publisher and the owners of the IP, ended up cancelling the game, basically. After revealing Postal Bullet Paradise, a title Running with Scissors was planning on publishing but not developing, we've been overwhelmed with negative responses from our concerned Postal community. The strong feedback from them is that elements of the game are very likely AI generated and thus has caused extreme damage to our brand and our company reputation. You might say, now what reputation? But anyway, our trust in the development team is broken, therefore we have killed the project. Now, this in and of itself is kind of embarrassing that they didn't do their due diligence and recognize that it was generative AI, and also that didn't recognize that the developer had a history of using generative AI. But it's a little bit worse when they came out against Tim Sweeney, in a story we'll get to in a second, but Tim Sweeney is basically saying AI good, generative AI good, and Running with Scissors basically said, no, it's not. This is especially embarrassing for the publisher, given that it had only a few days ago publicly disagreed with Epic's Tim Sweeney over the need to declare AI use in game development, basically saying that customers deserve to know if a game was crafted with creativity, soul, and actual talent, rather than some machine that craps out anything from a prompt. Mr. Sweeney and people like him are making this shit unbearable already, and then having to find out that one of their games was generative AI, yeah, egg on their face. And I probably should have had this story before that one, but I wasn't paying attention, and here we go. Anyway, Epic Games CEO says AI disclosure makes no sense. So this is Tim Sweeney basically saying that Valve having the tag on their Steam pages to say whether or not the game was made with generative AI content and what things were made with generative AI content in the game and so on and so forth. And Tim Sweeney basically saying that this is bad for some reason. So we responded to a comment on Twitter that Steam and other digital marketplaces need to drop the made with AI label. AI disclosure makes no sense for game stores where AI will be involved in nearly all future productions. Citation needed. Tim K saying that like this is like saying a computer was used, you know, like it feels like it's that integral or that obvious. Now you can liken this to food products that have their ingredients on the side of it and the breakdown of it, and you would want to know that milk contains milk. You know, I mean, it seems obvious, but you kind of want that in writing, you know, and that it doesn't contain milk with vitamin R. Yeah, sometimes it seems obvious, and even if it is obvious, you still want it in writing for legal reasons. The other side of it is that people want to know. Like, it's clearly a hot button issue, and the only reason you would want to hide that is because you want to use more of it. Like, the only reason you wouldn't want your ingredients on the label and the exact breakdown of how much milk is in your milk is because you don't want to put as much milk in it. You want it to be mostly water, right? That's kind of where we're going with this. Anyway, and then he had a really bad, like, fucking straw man argument there of saying that, oh, we should have mandatory disclosures for shampoo brands the developer uses. Yes, of course, because that's obviously very important. Anyway, Epic Tim Sweeney being stupid Tim Epic. And then we had the people Running with Scissors had their point of view, which I think is correct, even though it made them embarrassed a little bit later on. So Let It Die Inferno is a game that's coming out recently and also had a lot of Gen generative AI stuff in it, and rather surprisingly, they are actually quite transparent about what is and isn't in it. And while it's refreshing that they're transparent about it, everything that I see that they've used generative AI for, you're kind of just looking at it going, why? Like, one, you had to go in afterwards and massively edit it to the point that you could have just done this yourselves and you wouldn't have had all the bad press from it. Like, anyway, Let It Die Inferno, somewhat of a sequel to the original Let It Die. Super Tricks game, use of generative AI in the game. It's on their Steam store page saying AI generated content has been used and then edited by our team for certain parts of in-game voices, music, and graphics. So what does that mean? So in terms of background art, the planning team developed concept and text, ensuring they match the game's world setting. Based on these ideas, the art team then designed the background art and used an AI tool that observes copyright laws. There isn't one. And only to generate rough base images, which were painted over, refined, and adjusted by hand. Fucking do it yourself at that point. Like, you didn't even... One, you can't observe copyright. You can, as much as you want, you can put it in this prompt and the system prompts and try to filter things. It's not going to work. The underlying maths will not allow it to work. It's going to put out what it's going to put out. If there's copyrighted material in the training data, guess what? It's coming out in the output as well. Anyway, if all they used it to do was to generate a rough base image and then they painted over it and adjusted it anyway, just fucking do it yourself. Anyway, there's background posters, infocast images, which I assume is like an in-game news thing or something, maybe reading material images and so on. So it's nothing that's like foreground UI. It's not entirely clear how the generative AI observes copyright laws, because it's not, because it can't, but whatever. Maybe they were sold one that does, and they were told that's what it does, but it doesn't. Let It Die Inferno's characters are voiced by human performers, with one or two notable exceptions. One of them is an AI-generated voice intentionally to match the nature of the character, or the character Mom, who is an AI machine. And then some of the enemies, I think, have AI-generated voices, but like, human beings are totally capable of mimicking that voice. And again, it's one character. Literally one character. You couldn't have just gotten somebody in to do it. Someone you already had for maybe these other ones to do that voice as well. And not have this bad press. It's not like it was fundamental to the whole game or anything. Then there's an AI-based music editor was used to generate musical stems. It's like the beginning of a song. And then some of these stems were then edited by humans, but most were rebuilt from scratch. Just rebuild all of them from scratch then. Like, I feel like them just using generative AI just to use it. And now they're getting really bad press for it. Anyway, some people are grateful for the transparency. It is refreshing, but at the same time, angered by, in their eyes, the unnecessary use of AI assets. Why would I bother paying for a product that developers didn't give a shit enough, etc.? That's a pretty common response to generative AI. If you weren't arsed enough to make it, why would I be arsed enough to buy it? And then, are these assets really worth it? Are they worth losing the goodwill of some of your dedicated player base? And like, no, is the answer, really. Anyway. On top of all that, the game itself is not actually very good. It's PvP only, which means I'm not going to touch it, but it's not optimized particularly well, and it's lacking a lot of the kind of fun stuff from the original game. So, nothing of value was lost, maybe, kind of thing to this, but still. It sure seems like you went out of your way to use generative AI when you could have just not done that and not gotten such bad press for it. Anyway, the last one, Dan Houser kind of sums up a lot of how people feel about the generative AI thing. So Dan Houser, former Rockstar, I think left after GTA 5, the Houser brothers. Anyway, some of these people trying to define the future of humanity, creativity using AI are not the most humane or creative people. And like, that's kind of the blurb really to go with. Anyway, Dan Houser is currently doing the rounds on a couple of different podcasts, a couple of different articles, news outlets, and what have you, because he has a book coming out, I think. But he's being asked a lot about Grand Theft Auto. He's being asked about Rockstar. And one thing he was asked about is the use of generative AI in the video game industry. So observations about the people who are making or pushing AI within the creative fields. Some of these people trying to define the future of humanity are not the most humane and creative people. They're saying we're better at being human than you are, and it's obviously not true. That's one of the other things, is that humanity is being pulled in a certain direction by a group of people who maybe aren't fully rounded humans. There was also the idea that large language models will eventually eat their own shit. And just get worse and worse and worse over time, because you're using generative AI to put stuff out into the internet, and then the internet is being used as training data for the next generation of AI, and you're doing a big Ouroboros of just eating your own piss and shit. As far as I understand it, the models scour the internet for information. The internet is going to get more and more full of information made by these models. It's a sort of like when we feed cows. With cows, we got mad cow disease. They're already running out of data. It will do some tasks brilliantly, but it's not going to do every task brilliantly. It's not going to do any task brilliantly. It will do some tasks okay enough that you'll put up with it. The idea that it's going to replace everything for everybody everywhere, no, it's not. Anyway, I do think this idea here, though, that kind of sums it up, is like, they're trying to say that it's the future of humanity and it's the future of creativity when they have neither of those things. Anyway, last thing coming out of the community, and admittedly, I don't actually have much from the community things this week, or this 3 weeks, but I thought this was fun. So this is a new Banjo-Kazooie game. Now try to tell if something seems a bit off about the game. Tell me when you see it. Tell me when you see there's something a bit strange going on. You might have saw it there. You might see it now. You might see it now that it has a weird mouse cursor. Anyway, this is Banjo-Kazooie remade inside Dreams, the PlayStation creativity suite kind of thing, and like, it was really difficult to tell for a little bit that it was made in Dreams. This is extremely impressive. And if this hasn't been hit with a cease and desist by now, I'd be very surprised. But if you still have Dreams on your PS4, PS5, you can get this. It's Banjo-Kazooie Mumble something or other. Mumbo-Mania is what it's called. And it's extremely well done. And continues to annoy me that Sony decided that Dreams was not worth supporting, because look at the shit that some people can make with it. Anyway, we will leave. Okay, I guess Metroid is probably the big game that came out in the last 3 weeks, so we'll leave that. Anyway, that was your news for the last 3 weeks, 17th of November to the 7th of December 2025. We had the Xbox partner preview kind of thing. There was also an Upload VR showcase that was disappointing. I don't know why I say it's disappointing. It was expectedly disappointing, I guess, is another way to put it. I'm really just waiting for one big fucking VR game, and I'm just not getting it. Except for that Batman one, but it's on fucking Meta, and I'm not touching a Meta Quest. Yeah, some of those games in the Xbox partner preview were pretty good, but they're quite a while off. There were some new games shown off there. The Godslayer from Pate, which is a really big change for that developer. So interesting to see how they handle it. Samson from Liquid Swords, who I think are former Witcher developers, which could be an interesting one as well. Looks like it might be a very contained linear type game, which is kind of what you want, because like massive AAA games at this point are just getting out of hand. Other things, Romeo Must Die has a release date. Replace Now has a release date. It's pretty good as well. A couple of new releases. Of course, Samus has the Akira slide as well. It has to happen. Yeah, I guess it's a bit disappointing that Metroid Prime 4 is not like the greatest game of all time. But also, was it ever going to live up to that hype? Probably not. You kind of would have wanted it to live up to a little bit of hype. Anyway, I do want to get around to playing Demon School, and I might finally come out of hiatus for doing videos, and I might do one for that. I'm hoping to get one video done before the end of the year at least. You know, I I know that's not like a massive ambition or anything, but no, I kind of want to get one out. I will be doing a year in review thing, or not year in review, because I have nothing to review. 2026 games coming out, maybe, kind of thing, like I've done before. But I probably won't stream it. I'll probably do that as a standalone video because I think it needs a lot of editing. The last ones that I've seen, or last ones that I've done, rather. I feel like there's a lot of downtime with me just swapping in and out assets, and I think a lot of that can be done edited. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing, and hopefully make for a much shorter video. Anyway, industry bullshit. Remains to be seen what's happening between Netflix and Warner Brothers. That deal will still take a while to go through. Even with the US administration, it's like legal filings that need to be, all sorted out and deal with whatever the fuck Paramount are doing. I do think it's maybe a play to get CNN before their midterms, because at the moment they would have to wait for the Netflix Warner Brothers deal to finish, which would be April, which would be too late if they wanted to get their messaging ready for the midterms. So I think they might be trying to force spinning off of that stuff, because Netflix don't want CNN for obvious reasons. And they don't want any of the Discovery Channel stuff, which is a little bit strange. Like, they're shit, but I would have imagined Netflix would have wanted additional content they can just shovel on that's already there. And that includes the Cartoon Network, which is good. There's a lot of stuff there. But kind of strangely, I don't want to get into this because it's not really a video game thing, but the IP of like stuff on the Cartoon Network and stuff on Discovery Channel or what have you would still be owned by Warner Brothers. So Cartoon Network, etc., would have to then pay licensing to Netflix effectively to continue operation. That's weird. I don't know how that's gonna work out in the end. Anyway, we had a bunch of idiots saying things about generative AI. We had a bunch of people getting slapped for using generative AI. We had the Rockstar very, very flimsy excuse for shutting down union stuff. Just saying, oh, you leaked our social media policy to other employees in a closed Discord server. Like, I really don't think that one's going to stand up. And if it does, I have lost complete faith in the justice system. Anyway, not that I have much to begin with. I've only just talked about these stuff and I can't remember them anymore. I really do need to write these things down. Right. Anyway, I'm going to head off. That was a lot of talking and my voice is getting tired. We'll be back again on the weekend. The Game Awards is happening Thursday, the 11th of December. It's like a couple of days now. So I'll probably have a lot to talk about then. And then at that point, we'll probably wrap it up, because the last couple of weeks of the year tend to not have much news happening. So we'll probably get my 2026 video done at that stage. Anyway, I'm going to head off. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.